Governor Branstad wants voluntary compliance on water quality issues. I'm going to cry foul on that one. Adam Mason will join me for that conversation. We're also going to talk about Walmart, the big Black Friday protest, and the Walmart connections to the horrific garment factory fire in Bangladesh. Later in the program, Channing Dutton, climate patriot, will join us for a conversation about polling numbers that indicate the general public is warming up to the reality of climate change.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Thank you, Andy Fleming and Brother Trucker, for that music. Thank you to Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring this program, and to Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Later in the program, we're going to talk about Walmart. We're going to talk about Black Friday, about the horrific garment fire in Bangladesh. We're going to talk a little bit about Bethel Mission, which, you got to know some things about that, folks, before you start emptying your pockets into an organization that really is not doing what it's saying it's doing. And later in the program, we're going to talk with Channing Dutton, a self-described climate patriot, about some of the things happening on the climate change front in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. But first, we're going to talk about the whole water quality dust-up. Okay, I think a letter to the editor this morning by Jack Hearn, who I don't know, but who I thought he nailed it on the head. This is regarding Governor Branstad's approach to trying to comply with the EPA requirements that we do a better job at what we allow into our streams and what we do in terms of our effects on the Gulf of Mexico. So the letter is entitled Voluntary Pollution Law Compliance, Get Real. Jack writes, think how much the citizenry would enjoy and doubtless benefit by voluntary compliance with these laws. Taxes, traffic, banking, occupational safety, hunting, zoning, health, food safety, securities, shoplifting, embezzlement, drug safety, and on and on and on. Yeah, come on. By definition, Jack writes, the term law means a sanction for violating it. Even the Ten Commandments, I love it when our allies wax religious, even the Ten Commandments recognize the frivolity of voluntary compliance by imposing a penalty on noncompliance. So yeah, Branstad's efforts to try to shape this debate as something that we can expect agribusiness to voluntarily come along on is just a way to avoid avoid dealing with it. It's a way to send the problem literally downstream. And with me to talk about it today is Adam Mason with Iowa CCI. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ed. Good to see you again.
So you guys are part of the problem, I guess. You're part of the reason that the EPA has said, hey, well, Iowa, you got to get your water quality in order, or we're going to come and take it over.
That's right. I mean, what we're doing is working out there with folks who are sick and tired of seeing no fish in their streams, polluted waterways, higher property taxes because they have to pay to clean it up to drink it. And now the EPA is stepping in on a number of fronts, air quality, water quality, like this effort that started 2 years ago.
Yeah, and now this was, I believe, 2008 that the EPA required Iowa state government to put together this report.
That's right.
And I'm having a hard time understanding just why it took 4 years to do it and why the end result is one that involves mere voluntary compliance.
That's a great question. Every state along the Mississippi River was required to come up with a plan to clean up their waterways and what they're putting into the Mississippi River to cut down on the dead zone. Like you said, this is taking way too long. The problem hasn't been getting better. It's just getting worse, plain and simple. And so now, after 2 years, apparently, of the Farm Bureau working on a draft for Governor Branstad, we find out that their plan is basically, let's do the same thing we've been doing, voluntary compliance.
And that's one of the major points of scandal in this, is that the Farm Bureau, it looks as if the Farm Bureau actually wrote the report, or at least wrote components of it. And I'm going easy on Farm Bureau. When you have language in your own publications, as Farm Bureau does, that is matched almost verbatim with language in an official state report, it's safe to say Farm Bureau wrote the report, or at least components of the report.
That's exactly right. If you needed any more evidence that the Farm Bureau is embedded in the highest levels of the Branstad administration, here you go. This is it. Plain and simple. They're writing reports that basically dictate policy set by the governor.
Now, even some staffers with the Iowa DNR were upset about this. I mean, and quite upset, because they were totally cut out of the loop. I mean, the public has been cut out of the loop.
Exactly.
And so I got to imagine that there had to be some discomfort in the offices of the DNR with Chuck Gipp, the, again, handpicked, head of the department by Branstad, or come on, let's admit it, by Farm Bureau. I served with Chuck Gipp for 14 years. I saw what a pal Farm Bureau had in Chuck Gipp. So there's no doubt in my mind that he is as in on this as anyone. And there's got to be some pain in the DNR right now to have folks speaking out candidly. I mean, these are the folks who spoke out against the report are the frontline workers in the DNR, the folks who are responsible for assuring water quality, for assuring compliance.
Exactly. I think the DNR gets a bad rap a lot of the time. I'm not saying undeservedly so.
Sometimes from you guys.
Exactly.
Sometimes from me.
That's right. What I am saying is that I think there's career folks in the DNR who are there for the right reasons,
True.
who care.
Very true. Very true.
Those are the folks who are speaking out because they see what's going on behind the scenes. And that's what we really need to focus on cleaning up. If we're serious about cleaning up our water, we need to clean up what's going on behind these closed doors at the DNR and at the governor's office.
Yeah, and now, again, the public was not allowed to be a part of this conversation. The Iowa Department of Public Health was not involved with this conversation. A lot of other stakeholders, organizations, or state agencies that clearly have not just knowledge, but a vested interest in what comes out of a report on water quality were not at the table. And again, this report, the draft of this report came to light only because Des Moines Register reporter Perry Beeman demanded it, got it, and then discovered the Farm Bureau language, and then realized that the public had totally been cut out. And now there is a very, very quick process by which the public is allowed to comment, but no actual public forums, no hearings, no open discussions where people can collectively the dialogue about this. Am I right on that?
That's absolutely correct. There are no scheduled public hearings around the state for folks to go and weigh in their own community. I think they're accepting email comments on this plan. But basically, if the Farm Bureau took 2 years to put this plan together, and basically their plan is what hasn't worked for the last 2 years, is it fair to say that the public and every other stakeholder out there, environmental groups, other farmer organizations such as the Farmers Union, Progressive Farmers of Iowa, other farm organizations that represent family farmers, for them to come forward with their ideas about how to clean up Iowa's waterways and reduce the impact on the dead zone?
Yeah. So it's likely, I can't remember now, is there any legislative role in this? Or is it strictly the governor The administration has done its part. It submits it to the EPA, and that's it.
It submits it to the EPA, and then there'll be a response period where the EPA can weigh in. They'll accumulate all the other states' proposals as well and come back and work with them to create a work plan.
Do you happen to know if the other states have finished their reports yet?
I don't. No, I don't.
Okay. But my guess is that the EPA, they required this report because Iowa was doing a poor job.
That's
what
correct.
Branstad is saying is we're going to continue to do the same things that resulted in poor performance.
Exactly.
So there's no reason, again, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So in other words, we're going to be doing the same thing and we're going to get the same result. And the EPA, who required the report in the first place, is going to say, sorry, this is not going to cut it. Is that the likely scenario?
That's the likely scenario we see playing out. And our goal then is to be a part of the process moving forward. We want to be involved in suggesting the proposals and coming up with the work plans that are going to clean up Iowa's waterways. I think there's a lot of solutions out there that because the Farm Bureau has been so embedded in this process that the administration and the DNR hasn't even had a chance to look at. When you have DNR employees coming forward saying, we haven't had a chance to weigh in on this, that's a signal that there's ideas we haven't looked at.
Yeah. Folks, talking with Adam Mason, this segment of the program here today, we're talking about the water quality report required by the EPA, put together by Farm Bureau, by Governor Branstad, and now coming under attack from a lot of directions. You're welcome to join the conversation at 244-0077, 244-0077, and you can also email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. So let's assume, again, the legislature, it's divided. You got a very conservative, and I don't necessarily equate Republican with conservative, but this is a particularly conservative House with a strong rightish, right of center, even for the Republican Party, a core, I think. And then you've got a Senate, which is not exactly the most progressive chamber in the we've ever seen in Iowa or in other states, but it is controlled by Democrats. And I'm having a hard time really figuring out what might come out of that in terms of a response to this. It might be a wash. It might be something we see nothing on.
That's probably the most likely scenario, Ed, and it's a shame. It's a disservice to Iowa's hunters, fishers, our rural communities, and our urban communities who have to drink this water.
Sure, yeah. So do you think is it still worth pushing the legislature to do something, and if so, what?
Well, I think the first thing we have to start pushing is fully funding the Department of Natural Resources. We know that there's a certain number of staff people in the DNR doing their job that aren't having their voices heard. But the staffing levels at the DNR are at best 50% of what they were 5 to 10 years ago. We need more enforcers out there checking on Iowa's streams and waterways and coming up investigating those sources of pollution like manure spills and over-application of fertilizers.
All right, let's go to our phone lines, folks. 244-0077. Getting signals from Maddie, my producer. Are we ready to go to the phone lines?
In 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Mixed
2,
signals. So sorry.
1. Let's welcome Francis from Fairfield. Hello, Francis. Welcome to the show. All right, we're having a little bit of technical trouble here. I apologize. We'll try to work that out in the meantime. I guess back to the question of what the EPA does. They're probably going to say, okay, this is not going to work. This is not the report. This is not a report that satisfies the concerns that we raised.
Right. So
what does the EPA do next?
I think the EPA has to demand tougher standards of Governor Branstad and of our DNR. That's what we're seeing them doing on other Clean Water Act enforcement to bring Iowa into compliance. And that's part of what our legislative agenda will be at the State House this year.
Because the EPA has already taken over management of Iowa's water quality programs.
They're threatening to, yes.
I thought they did.
They have not
threatening?
Yet. Yes. Threatening to because of lack of compliance and enforcement.
And not just on the manure issue, but just broader, because we had so many streams and rivers that were unfishable. We never even think about drinking the water.
Right.
But all sorts of problems. And so I thought they had already taken it over. You're saying they're on the verge.
On the verge.
Okay.
And that would mean losses of millions of dollars that the DNR receives in federal funding to do its job, if that happens. That's not something we necessarily want to see happen, but it's something that if that threat is there, it can force compliance within DNR and ultimately, hopefully, force some action at the legislature.
Right. Okay, let's go to our phone lines with, what do we got? Francis Sticky, I believe, from Fairfield. Hello, Francis. Are you with us?
Hi, Ed. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Apologize for the earlier snag.
That's okay. I wanted to make two important points about water quality in agriculture. I worked at USDA in Washington 25 years ago when we launched a national water quality initiative, and the idea was it was going to be voluntary for the first few years to see if it worked. And we've been doing this over and over for many years as we get new bureaucrats and new politicians in, that we're going to do this voluntarily. It never has worked. During the intervening time, our water quality has gotten worse. The dead zone has gotten larger. And so the voluntary approach simply has not worked. Secondly, we need to recognize that corn and soybean production in Iowa is inherently leaky of nitrogen. We are not going to fix the dead zone by fine-tuning, by tweaking our nitrogen rates. They inherently leak. We're going to have to change our cropping systems, and nobody is willing to face that. The scientists at Iowa State and around the Midwest know that. Our politicians are not willing to face that. They don't maybe even know. We cannot fix the water quality problem of the dead zone by just tweaking our system. We have to change it fundamentally.
How do you fundamentally change crop agriculture here in Iowa? I mean, we're going the other direction right now. We've got more and more GMO options coming online, GMO options that are going to require 2,4-D and other chemicals that will eventually find their way into the dead zone. We've got 2 fertilizer plants heavily subsidized by taxpayers, one on the west coast of Iowa, the other on the Mississippi, heavily subsidized. I mean, you're going to see an increase in the use of fertilizer, probably an increase in the use of GMOs. I mean, how do you turn this monster around?
The key thing you have to understand is that annual crops like corn and soybeans only actively grow for about 4 months of the year. The other 8 months of the year, the soil is not protected from leaching of nitrogen to tile drains into the rivers into the dead zone. And so we need to have more cover crops like rye, like winter rye and so on, things that will hold that nitrogen in the soil. 2/3 of Iowa's land surface is covered in corn and soybeans every year. They are leaky. They will leak. There's no way they're going to not leak. We can't fine-tune things enough. We have to add extra crops or more diversity in the rotation. And that's a huge issue for people, and nobody wants to admit that.
It's interesting to think of soil as a source of leaking. I mean, you don't normally associate leakage with agriculture, but I think it's a good point.
Think about it this way. Underneath the corn and soybeans for most of Iowa, there are tile drains that the water rainfall goes through, and that the water will take nitrate with it. And so it's inherently leaky in that sense, leaky of nitrogen, which is a limiting nutrient in the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico.
It will take nitrogen with it, or it will take 2,4-D or atrazine or whatever, Roundup, you know.
That's true, but the dead zone is basically caused by the limiting nutrient is nitrogen. So we're not going to change the dead zone unless we can reduce nitrogen leaching. And we are not on track, and this plan is not on track. This plan will give, Iowa State's involved. They will get more research money, which they want, and we'll put it off for the future is what we're going to be doing with this plan.
Okay, and you ran for Secretary of Agriculture, so you've had a chance to think about the policy implications of this. And again,
and I'm also a soil scientist by training, so I've studied this issue.
Yeah, so I mean, what do you hear from your members, Adam? And your CCI is both rural and urban. You've got a lot of rural members. I think you've got a member in every county in Iowa.
That's correct.
And so, are you hearing a willingness on the part of your agricultural members to begin to move agriculture in a different direction?
Definitely. I think family farmers, by and whole, are looking for options to do this. And what we've seen is that the voluntary compliance, as Francis said, isn't working. Francis is one of those folks out there doing it the right way, making sure that he's planting cover crops year round, and has ideas. I would wager a guess that Francis was not consulted about this plan anytime over the last 2 years.
Francis, were you consulted by Bill Northey on the production of this plan?
I missed that email.
Oh, you missed that email. Yeah, well.
but see, I think that's how we at least start to turn this beast around, is that we got to get the right people at the table. And having a behind closed doors meeting with just a couple Farm Bureau lobbyists and the governor is not getting the right ideas at the table.
Yeah, and actually is very contrary to what Governor Branstad said he would do as governor when he campaigned. He talked very loudly about opening up government, I mean, every candidate seems to do that, and yet they seem to find ways of making it even more and more closed to the average person. Any final thoughts for us, Francis?
Well, I would just point out that we could do it somewhat simply. If we put like rye, winter rye on every field after corn and soybeans, research at Iowa State shows we could reduce nitrogen leaching by 50%.
Wow.
That would make a tremendous impact. But nobody is wanting to do that. And so we have some tools we could use and put more perennials into the rotations and so on. So we know how we can fix it, but nobody has the political will to actually even bring it up.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Francis, that I planted annual rye this fall on over half of my 1,000 square feet of garden.
Great.
I'm not sure how much of an impact that will have in the big scheme of things, but anyway, I did my part. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, Francis.
Thank you.
Folks, Francis Dickey from dairy farmer from Jefferson County and former candidate for Secretary of Ag. Adam, any final thoughts for people on this issue?
Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but ultimately what's going to force Governor Branstad's hand, what's going to force the DNR into compliance and hopefully change the direction at the Department of Ag is, sure, the EPA can come in and make some demands, but ultimately it's going to take more folks weighing in with their legislators this legislative session to really start pushing that change and start opening it up to more folks.
Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Folks, when we come back, I'm going to talk with you about Walmart. Walmart received was the target of some of the biggest protests ever against the nation's largest retailer and biggest employer. And since Black Friday, things have gone downhill even further for Walmart because of the garment factory in Bangladesh, a tragic event that killed 112 people. And even members of the corporate media are pointing the finger at Walmart in this tragedy. We'll talk about that when we come back from a break here. I do want to thank Gateway Market for helping to sponsor this segment of the show. Gateway is at 20th and Woodland in Sherman Hill, just on the edge of downtown Des Moines. They've got everything you could possibly want in terms of groceries, not just food, but cosmetics, you name it. And they got a lot of local stuff as well, from local dairies, meat producers, vegetable farmers, fruit farmers. Check them out, folks. Also for breakfast, lunch, and supper in the cafe, and for catering as well. That's Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland in downtown Des Moines. Keep your money and your shopping local.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Host is a locally owned restaurant in downtown Des Moines that focuses its food and philosophy on embracing simplicity. The majority of Host's food is from local farmers who practice sustainable and health-conscious agriculture. Much of what you'll find on your plate is a familiar comfort food, presented with a modern and tasty interpretation. Host is open for lunch Monday through Friday from 11 to 2, and also available for private dinner events and special themed dinners throughout the month. So, check out Host at 13th and Locust in Des Moines.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome. not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Water, folks. The quality can only get better. Hey, that's Mr. Babers' Neighbors Ode to Jones. Thank you, Babers, for being a great contributor to this program. I also want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of the program. I want to talk a little bit about Walmart. I want to tell you about Lee Camp coming to Iowa. But first, every year around this time, you read these warm and fuzzy stories about the Bethel Mission, a.k.a. Hope Ministries. Folks, you need to know the truth about this group, all right? And I speak as somebody who lived behind the Bethel Mission for 19 years. I know these folks better than nearly anyone in Des Moines. And I can tell you, they're not the cute, warm, fuzzy, reputable place that you think. First of all, those 140,000 meals they serve every year, if you want one of those meals, or more important, if you want one of those meals and you want to be able to spend the night, first of all, you actually pay. The homeless people who stay at the Bethel Mission have to pay to spend the night, and they've got to go to a worship service. Okay, so I went to this worship service, and I felt so horrible for the people the men who were made to sit through this demeaning, insulting service. A worship service is one thing, but when the purpose is to make you feel like crap, that's the feeling that I came away with very, very strongly. I was very, very offended. And to think that's a requirement for you to be able to have a warm place to sleep at night. Their rapport with the neighborhood is pretty horrible too. They bought up and tore down, I think, 4 homes. One of the homes had a family living in it. They evicted the family, this home had a new furnace in it. I know the guy who put the furnace in, and they tore it down. So a new guy came along at the mission who was good to work with, Scott Larson, and Scott allowed the neighborhood to put in a community garden there. We put in so much, or we put in brick pathways, raspberries, an orchard, blackberries, a gazebo. And when new leadership came along at the Bethel Mission, they closed the entire community garden down. It actually had won an award for the best community garden in Des Moines. And they closed it down without any logic. And it has been vacant now for 10 years and has sat there as grass, unmowed grass. Used to do something good for the neighborhood. Again, ideally, it would have still been houses, but the mission bought these homes and tore them down. Here's a group that alleges to be for doing something for the homeless, and yet you tear down, again, 4 houses, and the total number of units, probably, 12, 15 units. Do not be fooled, okay? The Bethel Mission is not about helping poor people. It's not about feeding the homeless. It's not about doing good things. It's about destroying a neighborhood, and it's about taking advantage of the poorest and weakest among us. There's my unadulterated opinion. Bring on the next lawsuit, folks. My recommendation, yes, do good things with your money for the holidays. Give it to groups that are truly doing good things for the homeless, and there are plenty of them out there. Okay, so I am excited as all heck. Speaking of lawsuits, I had thought by now that maybe Leonard Boswell, almost a month after the election, would have said, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to continue this lawsuit against Fallon. But no, it continues, as do my legal expenses. So again, mega thanks to everybody who's contributed. And if you haven't and want to, you can go online to my website, FallonForum.com, click support, and you can use Dwolla, the local version, or PayPal, or mail a check. It's all appreciated. So far, I've got enough to pay the lawyer, but that's probably not going to be enough. And so I'm really, really excited that Lee Camp is coming to Des Moines. Lee is a nationally known comedian and activist. He was on Fox News until the time when he actually on the air read Fox News the Riot Act for its lack of any avoidance of bias. He's no longer welcome at Fox News, to his credit. But he is welcome in Iowa, and he will be here in January performing at the House of Bricks. And part of the proceeds from that will help my legal defense fund. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And I want to introduce you all to Lee Camp with a little clip we have here from Lee's take on the Occupy movement.
It's the idea of people over profit, good over greed. It's a mental evolution of the revolution kind. And that's why it makes corporate America feces themselves. And I think this is where Occupy should continue to head. It should keep helping people for free in a world that claims that anything done without a profit is a fool's errand performed by an errant fool. Occupy should set up free medical clinics in the middle of towns, free dental services, debt advice, food and clothing, and possibly even hand jobs. And then when the cops come to shut down the occupations, to shove their public good down our throats with nightsticks, they'll have to arrest the evil villains providing free medical care, the sinful freaks stacking clothing for the cold, the devious, malevolent, foul hippies feeding the hungry. Let the negligent media come down and report on the police knocking over pots of soup and handcuffing nurses. Be our guest. That's
I love Lee's ability to explain an issue really well while being, I think, very entertaining. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to decide whether my bike has an opinion on this matter.
I quite appreciate Lee Camp. I think he's very funny, although sometimes inappropriate.
Okay, well, we the event may indeed allow bikes to come and attend. So
You think so, for free? Do you think I'll get in for free?
I don't know. We might have to charge you.
Oh.
Maybe extra, in fact.
I'm not sure if that makes sense.
All right. Anyway, okay, on to some really serious matters. Walmart took a little bit of a beating over Black Friday. There were protests all across the country. There are workers who are going on strike. Walmart itself filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board to try to stop Walmart workers from organizing, from protesting. And here's a clip from one of those actions around the country.
Looking at problems from within as employees continue their strikes around the country, like this one over the weekend in Dallas, and this one in Mira Loma, California, where 6 warehouse employees blocked the streets and ended up in jail. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union is calling for a massive walkout on Black Friday, even though very few Walmart employees belong to the union. The strikers and their supporters complain that Walmart doesn't pay them a decent wage and retaliates whenever someone complains. Walmart responded by filing a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, accusing the union of illegally organizing picket lines and other demonstrations. The threatened Black Friday walkout comes just days after striking union workers failed to come to terms with the maker of Twinkies and Wonder Bread. Yeah, and we know how that turned out.
Twinkies and Wonder Bread. Yeah, there are so many reasons why one should have concerns about Walmart. Again, their strong, almost rabid anti-union posture. The wages they pay their workers, whom they lovingly call associates, those wages are not enough to even meet the poverty level. You certainly don't get any benefits with them because, again, most of the folks who work at Walmart work there part-time. The list of reasons why you should be concerned about Walmart is long. And again, also on that list, its impact on locally owned businesses. There are so many businesses that aren't able to continue to exist because of the drainage into Walmart. And so my friends out there who like to argue that they are free market at the core say, well, that's just the market at work. That's how things happen. Walmart is able to offer they have a competitive advantage because they offer they deal in large scales and they offer low prices. Well, do they really deal in a true free market economy? When you can get lots of subsidies, and I won't even go into all those, including tax breaks and depreciation on your buildings and whatnot. But when subsidies also include incredibly low wages and horrible working conditions in third world countries, that's a subsidy, and however you cut it, that mom and pop stores don't have the option to take advantage of, and nor should they, and most of them wouldn't because they have better consciences than that. I'm asking myself right now, after what happened in Bangladesh the other day, why is that not a crime? Why is what happened in Bangladesh not a crime? Let's look at this video. Is from ABC News. Again, I'm a frequent critic of what I call the corporate media, but every once in a while they get it right. Every once in a while, the Des Moines Register does a great job on an issue, and in this case, ABC did a fantastic job, I think, of holding Walmart's feet to the fire, so to speak.
Horror at a clothing factory that went up in flames, workers trapped inside. The factory is in Bangladesh, but the clothes they make are for international companies, some of those companies American, allegedly including Walmart. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross has been tracking these overseas factories and their safety violations and has already begun to ask questions tonight.
The fire broke out at night as hundreds of garment workers were on overtime shifts, producing clothes bound for some major American retailers, including Walmart, according to workers' rights groups. Officials in Bangladesh said the flames spread rapidly on the ground floor, trapping those on higher floors of the 7-story building. There were no exterior fire escapes, according to officials, and many died after jumping from upper floors to escape the flames. As firemen continued to remove bodies today, officials said at least 112 people had died, but that the number of fatalities could go higher. It all adds to the shameful record, as previously reported by ABC News, of more than 600 garment factory fire deaths in Bangladesh over the last 5 years, a place of the cheapest labor in the world and some of the most deplorable conditions.
The industry, apparel brands in the U.S. have been warned again and again about the extreme dangers to apparel workers in Bangladesh, and yet they have not taken action.
Workers' activists went into the burned-out remains today to document which major retailers they say were using the Tazreen factory. They say they found labels for Feta Glory, a Walmart private label, along with labels they say tracked back to Sears and a clothing company owned by Sean Combs.
There's no question that Walmart and the other customers of this factory bear some of the blame for what happened in this fire, yes, without doubt.
Is that really fair? Because they're so far away.
They know exactly what's going on in these facilities. They have staff on site in Bangladesh.
Walmart actually warned of dangerous conditions at the Tazreen factory last year in a letter posted on the website of the factory owner. Quote, the factory had violations and/or conditions which were deemed to be high risk. Tonight, a spokesman for Walmart tells ABC News the company has not been able to confirm whether its clothing was being produced at the factory at the time of the fire. We haven't heard back yet from Sears or Sean Combs, 2 other companies that labor activists said were using the factory that turned into a death trap, David.
We've been warning of images just like these for some time now, Brian. I know you'll keep asking these questions. Thank you.
Okay, 600 fatalities just in Bangladesh. We know that there are similar sweatshops elsewhere in the third world. How much of this is going to continue, folks? And again, yeah, Walmart can say, well, we didn't know we were getting stuff from them or we had warned about the conditions. The reality is these factories exist because Walmart and other companies, but again, Walmart being the biggest, have decided that that's how they're going to produce their cheap goods. This factory would not exist had it not been for Walmart. Okay, let's cut to the chase on that. So, they can try to say that, well, we didn't know, well, we warned about this, but the reality is the factory exists because of Walmart. So, I see poor people in prison all the time. I see Occupy protesters beaten down by police. I never saw anything before in New York City. It was just incredible. And then I see things like this, 112 people killed, and I see no corporate responsibility at all. And I say, why? It's wrong, folks. And the least you can do is to start by boycotting Walmart. for that matter, take it a step further if you can and support your local businesses. You know, local businesses are not going to behave like this. They're not going to endorse this kind of behavior. They're ideally, if they can find a way to do it, many, if not most, will be getting products from local sources. Again, some of this is systemic changes. There are going to have to be systemic changes. Trade laws have to be changed. I mean, NAFTA. Gosh, I would love to see NAFTA repealed or at least looked at and restructured in such a way that we don't ship American jobs overseas to where the wages are lowest and the environmental conditions and working conditions are the worst. We're a ways from that. We have a huge political problem on our hands. We have a huge political change to function, to manage. But let's start with our own shopping habits. So that's my advice, folks. There'll be more to talk about this in the future. In the meantime, we're going to switch gears to climate change. Climate change is a major topic, of course, and one that is on people's minds even more so after Hurricane Sandy. One that is always on my next guest's mind. Channing Dutton is a self-described climate patriot. He's an attorney here in the Des Moines Metro. We're going to talk with him. But as we move into the short break here, folks, I want to remind you, when it comes to climate change, you got to think energy. And when it comes to energy, think conservation. And as a start on conservation, go to Tim Reynolds at ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. Tim is one of the businesses that support this program, and Tim offers a free audit. He'll come in and do an energy audit of your home for no cost to you. He'll identify places you can save money, save energy, reduce your carbon footprint, and reduce your costs. Check him out at ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com or give him a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655.
This is Dr. Holding of the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
More than ever, average Americans are being squeezed by high energy prices. For decades, oil companies like British Petroleum have demanded access to the oil off America's coasts, and they even receive taxpayer subsidies. Yet increased drilling won't solve America's energy problem. It will only increase oil industry profits. The Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club supports clean energy solutions, energy efficiency, and conservation as the pathway that's best for America, both for our environment and our economy. For more information, go to iowa.sierraclub.org. That's iowa.sierraclub.org.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I want to thank Tally's Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of the program, and I want to thank Pumptown for the Tune Bicycle to help kick the conversation off. I also want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio for this program. And I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my wonderful producer. And I want to remind you, folks, that Bradshaw will be with you after this program at 1:30. Bradshaw with you every Monday through Friday, 1:30 to 2:30, spouting his crazy atheist communist drivel and astute political observations. All right, hey, I am delighted to have Channing Dutton in the studio with me. Channing is a climate patriot, an attorney, and has done more, studies this issue harder than anybody I know. And I commend you for that because it's an important one. And a lot of times people's eyes tend to gloss over when you start talking climate change.
You know, isn't that the truth, Ed? The hardest thing of all is to engage people in a discussion that's so serious. And it's kind of the role of human nature to perhaps think, well, I'll worry about that tomorrow. But tomorrow is rapidly descending on us right now, as the people of Breezy Point, New York, would be the first to line up and attest to.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what the polling on climate change would be for New Jersey, northern New Jersey, New York City right now, Connecticut, places that were hit really, really hard by Hurricane Sandy. Do they get it? I mean, maybe right now they're so focused on trying to get their lives back together.
Well, Ed, I like to say that, there's no atheists in the foxhole. And those people in New Jersey and in New York who've seen this firsthand, they're in the foxhole. Even in September, Yale University, they'd run a series of climate polling services. The numbers were striking in terms of how the American population is moving towards, we want more climate action, we want more responsible climate action, and we want civil discourse between Republicans and Democrats to address this problem. Then you drop Sandy right in the middle of that discussion.
Right.
And the October surprise is real and is having a dramatic effect even on the discussions that we see in the national commercial media that you were referring to earlier.
Yeah. No, and again, it's hitting home locally as well. We've had a very, very significant drought this past year. I mean, it's not as bad as droughts can get and have been in the past, but it's quite a contrast from the flooding we've had in recent years. But both the flooding and the drought are factors of the climate change models that scientists have been predicting. I've got an interesting quote from Chris Anderson, who I hope to have on this program sometime soon. He is a research assistant professor at Iowa State University with the climate science program. And he's quoted as saying, quote, "In a warmer climate, wet years get wetter and dry years get drier. And dry years get hotter. And that is precisely what happened this year." And so, there is now a group of scientists in Iowa, I think over 100 scientists, Iowa scientists, who are saying, hey, serious problem. Let's start doing something about it here in Iowa.
Well, November 19, 138 scientists from all of the institutions around this state, they step forward and they say to the governor and to the legislature, let's get moving. This is no passing fad that we are looking at. We're going to have severe economic impacts as we deal with those wetter years and those drier years. And Ed, the numbers right now on the drought are, it's back. The drought is cooking full time. It's not raining anywhere in this state. And all of your listeners who are in Waterworks Park just need to go across the rickety bridge and take a look at the Raccoon River.
I was on that bridge the other day. It is very, very low. And it is a serious concern. And we don't think about drought as much this time of the year. We don't worry about it as much. We don't need as much water. We don't have lawns to mow, or water rather. But look at what's been happening. It's very, very dry. The soil moisture is very low. Farmers know that.
Right. I was just going to say, if you have farmer in your title, you know what's going on, and those men and women are worried about what this means for the coming crop year and what that means for food prices and what that means to our economy. And I mean the economy right here in Des Moines.
And on that issue, on the issue of the kind of a scientific view on climate change's impact on the economy, let's you share with me a video that I think is worth taking a minute from. Tell us about that.
This is a man named Paul Gelding. He's an Australian, and Gelding for years has been sounding the climate alarm. He has really fine-tuned his approach to talk about what is climate doing to our economy. What is the effect of such a large population and dwindling resources and rising prices going to have? And that's what he's talking about in this segment.
Folks, if you'd like to join the conversation here with myself and Channing Dutton about climate change, 244-0077, 244-0077, or if you want a toll-free number to call, put an 855 in front of that. Maddie, let's go to that video that Channing was referencing.
It's full of us, full of our stuff, full of our waste, full of our demands. Yes, we are a brilliant and creative species, but we've created a little too much stuff. So much that our economy is now bigger than its host, our planet. This is not a philosophical statement, this is just science, based in physics, chemistry and biology. There are many science-based analyses of this, but they all draw the same conclusion, that we're living beyond our means.
Living beyond our means, and I think that's something that a lot of us have been saying for a while. It's certainly something that folks on the political right remind the electorate that they need to do personally. And we need to be doing it not just personally, but as a country and as a planet.
It's really easy for the individual to get motivated. And that's kind of my story. But what is harder is for the population, for the group, kind of the group think, for the group think to reach this stage where we say, now is the time, today is the day. We need to institute change, and we need to institute that change now, not so much for us, but for the future. And Ed, that future may be 2020 that we're talking about, because these effects are not getting smaller. They're getting larger.
Right.
The consequence is going to be greater if we continue to do nothing. And as we mentioned earlier, the polling is, if you're a politician and you're sitting there looking at, well, what is the American public thinking? Well, polling may be right, it may be wrong, but the numbers on this issue are moving. Now, I'm a climate advocate, and I believe in this. And so as I speak to my friends, I speak to my clients, my professional acquaintances, the deniers out there are very few. They are slowly taking a step back. They're fading to the background, right, and they're converting.
But they've also been very effective at moving public opinion. I mean, public opinion was more in support of identifying climate change as a problem and identifying the human connection. I mean, the numbers are better for us years ago. And compliments of the Koch brothers and other corporate interests and their mouthpieces on WHO and other corporate-owned radio stations and Fox News, the polling numbers in support of science backed off. But now we're seeing them moving the other direction.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that we still see the commercial media failing to recognize the trend, failing to see where the population is going? These so-called stunning effects from our November election. Mm-hmm. Well, those effects were out there, and those effects were there to be seen. But the media and the political process, and I'm talking both Republican and Democrat, they suppress that, and they suppress it along with Big Brother, their corporate masters. And this is going to require that we really stand shoulder to shoulder, people of faith, people of no faith, people of economic wealth, people in the 99%. We need to start moving together, or I shouldn't say or, because we are going to face a very stark reality to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean that reality is already hitting home in a lot of parts of the world. You sent me a couple of pictures too I wanted to share with people. One is from Jamaica. This is a home on Jamaica being hit by Hurricane Sandy.
And this is October 25. 2012. So this is about a week before this storm got to New Jersey. And I was sending this photograph out at that time saying, imagine if this storm was doing this to one of our coastal cities.
And then what happened? Then it hit. This is Breezy Point, I believe, right?
That's correct. This is a shot of Breezy Point taken, I think, yesterday.
I mean, that's as bad as any devastation you've seen anywhere in the world.
And that's what we're going to continue to see, because the effects of Hurricane Sandy are that we will continue to see these effects, but only intensified. And that's what these 138 scientists are talking about.
Iowa scientists.
These are Iowa scientists, but these are heavyweights. Gene Tockley at Iowa State University, so well respected. Tockley is a main signatory of the press release urging climate action. And so we have the brain power, and that brain power is telling us to move. And we have, I think, a broad public support that is just a little loosely organized right now. But the other thing that's really important, Ed, is now we're starting to get the economists. And I think I sent you, or you may have seen, in Nature.com, Nature Magazine.
Yes.
They ask a financier, a money man, to to write in a science journal about the effects of what he calls the climate bubble. And this is Jeremy Grantham. And this man, who has made his fortune predicting where we're going to go in terms of economic downturn, is saying this is an issue unlike anything that we've seen during the era of the Industrial Revolution. And he's advocating be arrested, move forward.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, that's pretty extreme considering where he's coming from and where he's been.
And he hasn't been
throughout
arrested.
His life. Yeah.
He hasn't one of the guys who's been arrested, but Bill McKibben has. James Hansen from Denison, Iowa. Hansen has been arrested trying to pound this drum. But his daughter-in-law was one of the people who was arrested on the XL pipeline
the Keystone Pipeline.
Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, when you start, maybe that should be an indication to people how serious this is. And if you need any other indication, look at what you're hearing from New York State, from both the Governor Cuomo, and Mayor Bloomberg. I mean, the economic devastation from Hurricane Sandy just in New York City and other parts of New York is so extreme that there is no way that they can't ink out on paper any way that the state can absorb the economic hit. It's got to be something that we all pitch in on. But the problem is, at what point are we unable to any longer fund the economic fallout from the storms that come with climate change?
And that's what Paul Gelding is talking about. He actually has a book. His video that we are looking this segment on from a TED presentation is excellent. And I would highly recommend it. It's 16 minutes long. But he has a book called The Great Disruption. And he says the real effect is going to be what climate change does to our economy, and that we need to mobilize now to start to address those changes. And you talked about Governor Cuomo. One of his great quotes that I send to all my friends, and if it indulge me just a second, he said, after Sandy, I get it. I've seen this movie 3 times. Climate change is real, it's here, and it's happening. And the government of New York, New Jersey, kind of the Northeast, they're going to ask the federal government for $71 billion. Now, where are we going to get that $71 billion on this storm?
Yeah.
Let alone the next storm.
I guess we could probably come up with it if we ended the war in Afghanistan immediately.
Perhaps.
But still, I mean,
it's an idea.
We're in debt. We're running deficits. The federal government is not in great shape. I mean, the state till here in Iowa is okay right now. It wasn't. It'll probably be hurting again. Right now, it's okay. Across the country, though, you've got a lot of states that are hurting as well. You've got a lot of local governments that are hurting. And the federal government in particular is a budgetary embarrassment. And how does it absorb all these additional challenges? I don't know.
Well, we may be solid right now, Ed, but if I was a new legislator or I was an old legislator, I'd be watching the snowfall totals in North Dakota and in Montana and watching to see what's going to happen to our next flood crisis. Because you had the quote earlier, in the dry years, things get drier. Well, that's where we are right now. But in the wet years, and it wasn't that long ago that we were looking at a Missouri
2 years ago,
right, at a Missouri River wet year, things get wetter. Right. And when things get wetter, Iowa is going to incur its own climate disaster again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, and the climate disaster could occur from too much dryness as well, the drought. I mean, if this continues for a few years, I mean, our crop yields were lower this year, but not as low as people feared. But they could easily get to the point where they are, so low that farmers lose their land and prices become ridiculously unaffordable for most people.
If you Google the phrase world grain reserves,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see a discussion of Iowa in 2012, because Iowa is the food engine that is driving so much of the surplus of food,
Mhm.
and is accountable directly for the price of food essentially throughout the world, let alone in Iowa.
Channing, thank you so much for joining us. Channing Dutton, folks, climate patriot, attorney. If folks want to get in touch with you, what do they do?
They can call me at my law firm, which is 224-4400.
224-4400.
Correct, right here in Des Moines.
And if now again, we're seeing some pretty extreme measures being proposed by leaders on this issue.
Oh, hey, and one last thing, Ed.
Yes.
I am looking for people for the next round of presidential candidates. We just had Marco Rubio here, and we should be confronting him. We should be asking these questions.
But he's not a scientist, man.
Exactly. He doesn't. He's not exactly sure, but I bet one of these 138 scientists from Iowa can tell him how old the Earth is.
Well, how old the Earth is and whether or not climate change is happening. All
There
right.
you go.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. Again, stay tuned for Bradshaw. He'll be with you at 1:30. And just a quick look ahead. Tomorrow, Adil Khan is going to join me. He is a young activist with Liberty PAC. We're going to talk about the Ron Paul phenomenon. Again, I have mixed feelings about Ron Paul, but I think he's a fascinating fellow with some things to say that are worth talking about. We'll look at some clips from his farewell speech before the U.S. House, and we'll talk about how third parties move forward after the 2012 election. We're also tomorrow going to talk with Lisa Bean with the Iowa Food Co-op. Thursday, State Representative Dan Kelly is going to join me, and on Friday, we've got a whole bunch of other things to talk about, including the BP oil spill settlement, which I know would interest you as well, Channing. Yeah. So thanks, folks, for sticking around. If you missed the show and miss any show, you want to go back and find it, it's on my website, FallonForum.com. We've got podcasts, both audio only and the usual video televised podcast. Thanks again. See you tomorrow.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.